welcome to another episode of Better You. So this is the second half of the video that I did earlier in the week, vetting for women, and this one is vetting for fellas and some starting points for that process. So before we hop into it, hit the like button, share, comment, subscribe. I feel like that's out of order for some reason, but whatever. So vetting is very important when you're talking about a mate and somebody that you're considering for marriage. Speaking from personal experience, choosing the wrong person is something that at the best is a hindrance and, just a simple pardon of ways and time, gone. At worst, it's something that can follow you and impede you in your growth for the years and decades to come. So for men, this is something that is very vital. If you're considering marriage, and I would actually recommend marriage for any man who wants to have children. And it's one of those things. I think you have to have a little bit of honesty with yourself. You can vet and vet and vet and vet, and if you do your job well, you will find and uncover certain things. But nothing is 100% foolproof. Nothing is 100% guaranteed. And these are just some of the pointers and things that I do or have done. So you take everything with a grain of salt. As I said before in the last video, I'm somebody who currently I'm in a relationship. I was married, now divorced, now looking to remarry. And, at least in my personal opinion, I think I'm getting pretty damn close to that date. So, without further ado, one of the first things that I feel a man should find out when he is considering a mate is, how does that person view men? And is it congruent with how you want to operate? And what I mean is this. Simply put, a lot of society thinks of men through a task and resource lens. And you hear it a lot of times, and that's not putting down or throwing stones at anybody, but you hear it a lot of times when you ask somebody or ask a woman, like, what do they think of a man, or how do they think of manliness or masculinity? A lot of times it's task things. So he's somebody that protects. He's somebody that goes, works hard, brings back money, he provides. And that's not to say there's nothing wrong with those things, but as you go further down that list, you begin to realize that there's a whole lot of tasks there sometimes. And other times, like when I say in tasks, like he's the person that takes care of certain things with household maintenance, with automobile maintenance. He's the person that makes sure the bills are paid or certain pieces of household administration are taken care of. He's the person that does such and such. He's the person that makes sure that our sanitation, i.e. the trash, and the level of cleanliness in the house is at a particular, i.e. as I keep going, you get the picture. And then you have those who see men through a lens of their attributes. And, they see men for their leadership value. They see a man for his wisdom. They see a man for his discipline. They see a man for his integrity. They see a man for his drive, his ambition, the things he seeks out in life, his knowledge. So, and then you have the third category that kind of sees the full man, I guess, for lack of a better term. So if you want a woman who is simply put, if you want a woman who values some of those more abstract things in you, but you notice they're talking, task, those are some things that some conversation need to be had about, because those are some things that could possibly end up being points of strife later on in your relationship and could possibly cause rifts. Second, how is the relationships how are her relationships? Oh Lord, can't talk today. How are her relationships with the men in her life? Similar thinking here to what I said in the video about the women. You want to find out how she interacts with those men. Does she place value on those men? How does she love on those men? How does she pour into those men? Because there's going to be a good likelihood that, if she sees you as valuable, sees you as a viable romantic partner, that, if she's pouring into the men in her life in a particular way, that she will pour into you as well. And this is where it's important to have knowledge of self and know yourself and how you operate. Just because she pours in a particular way doesn't necessarily mean that's what you need. So the other path of that is you need to be able to articulate the things that you need if they don't necessarily fit hand in glove with how she operates and how she pours out. One thing about a lot of women is a lot of women can be adaptable, and it's like with anything else. As people, the willingness to learn is a big sign for me that a woman is invested. If it's kind of like, I am who I am, take it or leave it. That's just me personally. But that's a great and positive sign, and that's a great thing to find out. And that's one of those ones where, say for instance, if she's a gift giver, but I'll use myself for example. I had this conversation with my girlfriend at one point in time. Like, she tends to be a little bit more of a gift giver, acts of service type of person, and I'm physical touch, quality time. There's nothing. I appreciate gifts. I can appreciate, uplifting words and whatnot. But it took a little bit of time and a few conversations for her to really get like, this dude really do just want to spend some time with me. And it was a bit of a process at first, because there was some minor frustration on her end, because she would buy me a lot of a gift or two, or and not that I didn't appreciate them or anything like that. I most certainly did, but I didn't light up for those things like when I just had her. So once again, probably a good point, good thing to find out. And once again, if that person is open, if that person shows you that they're malleable, if that person shows a willingness to the will to change in that regard, I'm being petty. Inside, super insider. Yeah. You won't get it unless you follow another creator, but if they exhibit that will to change and accommodate, that is a great sign. Because with that flexibility, a lot of time that is expressing that they are bought into you, bought into the plan that you've laid out for them, and that they are willing to play whatever role it is that you are needing in order to try to help you fulfill your ambitions. Dang, I'm off center. One of the biggest things when it comes down to it, I would say also, who can hold her accountable? Is she a rogue agent of sorts? Or are there people in her life, like, say, for instance, a father, a mother, brother, somebody that can speak sense to her in those moments when they're being irrational? Like, if we're being honest, we all have them. We all have those moments where we're bullheaded, we believe we're right, and come hell or high water, we standing 10 toes down on whatever it is that we got. So having those individuals, or knowing those individuals, one, is a great way to find that person's character, because if that person doesn't have anybody that can speak any truth to them, it's kind of one of those things like, well, can you even take any criticism or feedback or anything like that? Because relationships are not sunshines and rainbows. There are going to be times when you're doing things they don't like, and there are going to be times where they're definitely doing things that you don't like. And part of a healthy and constructive relationship is having those systems set up and being able to parse through those disagreements. And kind of a little bit of a tangent and side note, I will say this: I believe one of the best things that any couple can do is find a person to serve as a mentor, mediator, counselor, whatever you want to call it, and when times are good going into their relationship. And it's important to vet that person as well, but you want to schedule and make sure that you're having kind of how you take your car, and for maintenance every so 1,000 miles, periodically you want to make sure that you're sitting down with that person, because sometimes what you can find is things are going great, but there might be some little things, or there might be some particular insights into how your partner views you and how you view them, that can be those little glue moments that can bring y'all closer together. They might be little things that you appreciate, or they might be little things that that they're unaware of, and it's an opportunity for them to learn more about you in the confines of that relationship and work better with you. And the flip side of it is, this is the biggest reason, whenever something hits the fan, a lot of times people want to, run then like, oh, counseling. Okay, there's a big issue with this, because if we're only seeking out a counselor once our relationship is going through tribulation, okay, if I'm the person on the bullshit, a lot of times I can't hear anything that counselor is saying, because that person's going to take it as, you know what, they agree with you, they just such blah blah blah, like, you just pick somebody because they will take your side, and vice versa. But when it's that same person that y'all had those maintenance conversations with, that had to give you a couple taps on the ass and gave her a couple taps on the ass as well, then it's one of those ones where they now had the credibility to help steer your relationship through whatever tribulation it is. Because now it's like, you know what, we went to such and such, and they just take your side. Yeah, but you don't remember how when we went to them a couple months ago, they chewed me out because of such and such? Well, yeah, but come on, like they calling balls and strikes here, bro. You right. So that factors in a lot. Because I can tell you, as a man, one of the scariest things is being in a relationship with somebody who's unaccountable. And it's one of those things which you have a lot to lose. And I don't think modern society really gets that from a male's perspective. Even quote unquote the average guy that they would characterize as having nothing, honestly, I feel it's even more valuable for them because they have nothing. If you want to go there with it, but enough beating that horse. Find out what they need from you and what they can consistently give back to you to pour into you. Everybody's different. Everybody needs different things. And this is where you kind of have to know yourself a little bit. And I would challenge, especially, I've talked about this before. I called Cap on Dr. T one time, the first time I ever heard him say that black men don't think about their needs in relationship. And I was like, I'm emotionally intelligent. I can articulate myself. That's Cap. And my girlfriend, matter of fact, the girl I'm with now, the lady I'm with now, she kind of hit me. She was like ear hustling. She heard it and she hit me with it. And she wired me out a little bit. And after a couple layers, I was like, oh shit. And I had to really grapple with it. What I found was I'm not that complex of a guy and I don't need a whole lot. But it took a little bit of self-questioning to really uncover that, because it was one of those things like, the way she kind of phrased it and the way I was kind of thinking about it is it one of those things you don't know because you haven't done that soul searching, or you don't know because you don't feel that need there? And I felt an absence of need for certain things. And it just came to be one of those things like, you know what, I guess a pretty simple guy in that regard. Pretty simple, straightforward. That conversation kind of tied back into several others that her and I had, in which, she is always constantly trying to understand me, and she questions a lot, not for the sake of undermining, but for the sake of understanding. And it's one of those things in which through that questioning, I've seen where as she's gotten certain answers, she has tried to be more accommodating to me and has tried to fit and meld with me more. And that is something that I feel definitely helps keep relationships together. When, especially, I'm assuming if you're thinking about that person in a serious manner, you at least give a fuck. And when that person at least gives half a fuck back, you might can go somewhere. So next thing I kind of had was, what is her conception of blackness? And this one might get a little bit choppy, but there are those who have a conception of blackness in which the best way I can put it is black men, frankly, are seen through a white, racist, patriarchal lens. And because of that, you may find that someone has certain, or has bought into certain preconceptions. And for me to kind of illustrate what I'm talking about, a person, they may like you, they may rock with you, but they may have certain conceptions of black men that may be a bit troubling or may be reason for caution. They might see you as a good person, but they might believe that a lot of black guys abandon their family. They might believe that a lot of black guys are inherently and innately violent. They might believe a lot of these racist narratives about black men. And while they may not, and I want to be very careful with this, that's not to say that these women themselves are racist or full-blown racist, but it is to say that they have been indoctrinated with certain aspects of white supremacy, which, as an individual grows and progresses, may influence how they act towards you as a relationship progresses or even starting up. And difficult conversation, but one that is definitely needed. One that I feel can help you find a lot out really quick, and help you make certain decisions. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to be with somebody who views you or views the men of your community in a pejorative light and has certain misconceptions about you. Just being frank, when it comes to black men, nigga bashing is the great American pastime. And a lot of rhetoric in today's society is set up and inculcated, and frankly, it's been absorbed and propagated and pushed by black folks just as much as any white racist. So ultimately, their conception of blackness and the quality of their mind state overall are things that are definitely big items that should be toward the top of your list to find out. And kind of to start rounding around to home, how do they view their role in relationship? What do they see you as in terms of how your individual relationship would work? Should y'all take that next step? Versus what their role is. And this is really one of those ones where you hammer out like, hey, yo, you know what? It could be something where your relationship may have some caveats in it, which, may make it look a little bit atypical. It might be one of those things like, she's like, you know what? For whatever reason, like, can't cook. But you find the kitchen, baby. Like, yo, you might end up doing a lot more of the meals, and I'll try to make sure that I'm there to back you up in terms of making sure things are prepped, as well as clean up. Set the stage and clean up. So that's what I mean in regards to that particular dynamic point there. And finally, does she understand submission in the biblical sense? This is something that is a big trigger point, and I frankly refuse to use any other word, simply because any other word gets just as much pushback. So if I'm gonna get the pushback, I'm gonna stand 10 toes down where I'm at. Submission in the biblical context of the scriptures is one in which we as men are commanded to love our wives, that spouse, as we love our own bodies. And we are commanded to sacrifice, should the time ever come. We're supposed to be the first partaker in danger and even sacrifice and lay down our life for that individual. And they're commanded to basically respect, love, and honor. And in the Bible, love, and I'll probably make this one of the end card videos, but not to belabor the point. Love is not necessarily a feeling in terms of the infatuation, but love is an action, a covenant, if you will, for how individuals should treat each other and act toward one another. And I'm saying this because a lot of, even though there's a bit of a rise in some alternative religions, especially in the black community, most black folks that I come across and interact with are some denomination of Christian. That's not to say that, there's anything wrong if somebody's a Muslim or anything else, but just know that certain dynamics may be a bit different due to cultural or religious differences. But I'm just solely speaking from my perspective and religious background for this particular point. And the reason why that understanding is important is because as a man, a lot of pressure is going to be placed on you. And I can say that there's no worse feeling than jumping the broom, getting married to somebody, and then, consistently going out into the world, having to fight for your place there, and then coming home to a contentious situation in which the person that you did these vows for, the person that you say that you love, doesn't reciprocate said love and essentially doesn't understand the responsibility heaped upon you and begins to act against you. And it's not saying that you won't have disagreements or anything like that. You can disagree in love. Her perspective is important. It's important to hear her out. Contrary to what a lot of folks may think, I believe women possess a different skill set than men, and that different skill set and that different attributes gives them a different perspective. And while I may not agree, while I may not go with that particular information that she provides me, I still want to know, because there have been some times where it's like they picked up on some things I didn't, and because they picked up on some things, and once they made me aware of it, I was able to then see it. Okay, cool, all right. I need to engage with them a little different. I need to see this, navigate this situation a little bit differently, and vice versa. At the end of the day, we need each other. We were made to be together. And when it comes down to it, the responsibility of leadership is always levied at the men's feet. And if the responsibility to lay down your life, if the responsibility to protect and provide, if the responsibility is going to be hung upon your head, I think it is completely reasonable to make sure that that person has respect for that obligation and that burden which you're taking on and engaging upon with them in order to set up your relationship and your family. And that is one in which you want to make sure that you're on the same page and that you two are a dynamic family unit and able to, get everything that you want out of life. So that's pretty much it for me. I could go on and on and on, but I don't want to make these like 2-3 hour videos, and I don't want to speak too terribly in depth on my personal as well, for examples. So I'll go ahead and cut it off right there. Thank you all for listening. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Peace. I'm out. Have a great one.